I'm Jessica Giannino, your state representative. Welcome to View from the Hill. Today, we're here with the Revere Fire Chief, Chris Bright.
Good morning, Jessica. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
It's an honor to be here on your inaugural show here.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So I'm so excited to start this series, and basically what we're going to do is cover a variety of different topics on what's happening in the city of Revere and up at Beacon Hill and kind of where they intersect. So I'm really excited to have you here with us today, Chief. The fire department has been really on the forefront of a lot of issues we've been working on, both at the city level and the state. Everything that's happened with the COVID-19 pandemic, with some legislation we have going on for the new fire station, and also a really big uptick in fires in the city of Revere recently. So I'm so excited to have you here as our first guest.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Chief, let's start by, talking a little bit about you. So I know everyone in the city knows you as our chief, but tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I grew up in the city. Reservoir Avenue was a great place to grow up. Followed my father, Paul Bright, onto the fire department. He was a very big influence, of course, my parents on me, particularly my father. He always loved his job, so that had quite an impact on me. And, I didn't always listen to my parents, but I did listen to them in the sense that I took the fire exam, even while I was going to college at the time. And just to give me more options. And I wasn't really looking to go towards the fire service, but when the appointment came up, I decided to take it, and I never looked back. It was the best decision I ever made. That was, I came on the department in February of 1986.
Wow. We're happy that you did.
So am I.
So, Chief, I know you grew up in the city of Revere, went to Revere High School. Now you're in this capacity to be able to serve the city. Very impressive. And you're also a lawyer, from what I understand.
Yes, I went to law school. Nights I worked my way through while on the fire department, and also became a lawyer too. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure those skills and the things you learn in law school are applicable to a lot of the different, regulations and things you're working on.
Big proponent of education. I think it always comes in handy, education in some way or another. And I wouldn't think directly with the fire service, but it certainly has come in handy for my promotional competitive examinations and in my capacity as chief of the department, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, the fire department has a very special place in my heart. My grandfather was a firefighter in Revere. My uncle is a firefighter in Revere. And something I love about the Revere Fire Department is it really is generational. You spoke of your dad. And in my role, it's really wonderful to see the different generations as they grow up in our city. And now kids that I grew up with are serving under you in the fire department.
It certainly is an extended family. It really is. Over the years, I've had the pleasure to work with your grandfather, Chris, who's a great guy. Obviously, Uncle Joe on the department now. Sons, grandsons, you name it. It is amazing, so it truly is kind of like your second family, and it's a special thing to see. It really is. So I'm glad to be here to see that.
Of course. And I think there really is a very unique camaraderie in the fire department with, when you see a member passes, the way that you guys come together to support the family and to support each other, whether it be around food, and we know there's a lot of that at the fire station, or just really being there for each other. It really is a unique career where when you become a firefighter, you inherit a whole second family.
It certainly is. I don't think there's really another occupation like that. Our fire stations, we call them our houses, because they're our homes away from home. And again, when you depend on each other in life and death situations, that does create quite a bond. So I think that what kind of drives us. Everything we do revolves around teamwork and each other. It's not about an individual. So that all, I think, works into that family, that family feeling that we have, in that really a deep love for one another.
Absolutely. And it shows, right? It definitely shows. So, Chief, out of all the things that you get to do as fire chief, I know it's a big role. What are some of your favorite things about your position?
I would say my favorite things about my position is like to get out of the office for an hour here and be with you. That certainly
Thank
is.
you.
Things like that. I mean, when I get to do anything with the children in the city or the elderly folks, that those things are enjoyable, those type of events. It's also very rewarding for me when we put on new firefighters, in our department, not only sons and daughters of former firefighters, but our department's been getting more diverse in the past, in recent years. And I'm very proud of that, to see that happening on the department. So those are the types of things, hiring new firefighters, bringing us personnel up to what it should be, and making promotions and stuff like that. Those are the fun things I get to do.
You mentioned working with the kids, and some of my favorite memories growing up in the city are going to, the different Touch a Truck events, and, getting to see the kids go into the fire truck and sit in the driver's seat and, tour the fire station. And they really look at your guys like heroes, and they are. And it's one of my favorite things to do when I get to see their reactions, and it's mutual. The kids get excited, but also the pride in the firefighter's face when they get to, make a kid smile.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's nothing better than that, really. The children are so pure and beautiful. For them to look at us in that way, how can you not look back on them and want to, not disappoint and live up to to your sworn duty. So it's we're very fortunate like that.
I'm starting to see the other side of it. My dad being on the police department now for 30 years, they just brought on a new police officer, and he had a picture when he was a kid growing up in Revere sitting on my dad's motorcycle. And that was one of the reasons why he wanted to become a police officer. So it's so amazing that stories like that happen in our city, on the fire department, on the police department, and, those
very
memories.
Very rewarding. I mean, really, that's what really makes it all worthwhile, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, Chief, we have a couple of topics to cover today. One of the things I wanted to talk about is, we'll start off on a little bit of a heavier note, is the fires in the city of Revere. Over the last 2 years, I find we've had several very large fires in Revere where homes were ruined and families were displaced. And I feel like, being in the city for as many years as I have, I can't remember a time that we've had this many major incidents in such a short period of time.
It has been a very robust period since I took over in chief 2016. I think a lot of it has to be attributed to the growth of the city. This city is the fastest growing city in the Commonwealth, and I think it's going to continue to be that way for the next 10 to 20 years. So we have seen an increase in some pretty serious fires. The Hyde Street fire this past summer, 7 alarms, several buildings. That was a very, very difficult, tough fire. We've had the 5-alarm fire in Beachmont before that. About 6 homes were affected by that. The Sorzios fire. So we have multiple 5-alarm fires, 4-alarm fires, the 7-alarm. So yes, we have had a big uptick. Fortunately, we haven't. There was only one fatality a year ago. That was the Thornton Street fire. We had one right before Christmas time. Mm-hmm. But other than that, we've been fortunate. We haven't had more incidents of death or serious injuries. So we're grateful for that.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it's not only the fires. There are several big rollovers too. I know we have those big oil tankers that come through our city. Since we're so close between the city of Boston and the oil farms, there have been several major rollovers in the city of Revere that you guys have responded to.
Yeah, we have a lot of experience with rollovers, but we usually don't. We had 2, back-to-back 2 years in a row, right at Broadway Circle, mm-hmm. which is concerning, and we were very fortunate that they worked out the way they did. But so we have a lot of experience in that. But to have two years in a row mm-hmm. is a little bit disturbing. We've been taking a look at that, obviously, and with our local city fathers and daughters, mm-hmm. and you and our representatives on the state level to see what we can do, maybe for some road improvements to make these trucks that traverse the city after they fuel up at Lee Burbank and make their way through our city to wherever their destination is, to slow them down, mm-hmm. have better signage, and just make the roadways a little bit safer, which it's difficult because Revere is a very high trafficked and congested area.
Absolutely. So, and I think what makes it even more scary is they're full. As they're coming through the city of Revere, they just filled up. It's not like they've, emptied their tankers. They're full. So they're coming in full speed. full load into our rotaries.
Right.
So
And those two were in the exact same spot, pretty much.
Wow.
They landed in the same exact spot, so it's like almost like a redo from the first one. And then but we're very lucky. There was no death or serious injuries at those. So we've been fortunate too in that regard.
going back to fires, because I think with rollovers, there are a little more things we can do to prevent them and talk about infrastructure-wise. But with fires, if you were to, share with our residents some fire safety tips, like what are you finding is the leading cause of these fires, and what can people do to prevent it?
I would say one of the leading causes of fires we've had, and always historically too, is the improper disposal of smoking materials. That has been the cause of some major fires. The Sozio fire, the Beachmont fire, Taft Street a few years back. These are all improper disposal. Central Avenue, a lot of these people smoking on rear porches that are either enclosed or open to the elements, and and that's where they're disposing of their smoking materials. And obviously, a lot of fires have started in the rear porches, and they make their way up the rear of the structure, and they're usually not seen right away. It's usually in the middle of the night when everyone's sleeping, and they make their way up into the cock loft in the attic, and then we end up, luckily, we've had one fatality before Christmas, and that was a tragedy. That fire happened to be caused by candles. But smoking materials, I'd say, is probably the improper disposal of smoking materials. People got to be more mindful, make sure they have, really, really safe ashtrays, and either a safe receptacle that's made for disposing cigarettes in, or have a big pail of sand, and make sure you're putting them out. I would say that would be the best advice I could give to people. That would help a lot.
Absolutely. And I know the elements haven't really been at your favor either. I feel like when these big fires have happened, it's been in the summer on days when it's 90 degrees, or in the winter when it's freezing and windy, or
That definitely goes with the territory. Fire knows no holiday.
Yeah.
That's what my father always told me. I'm sure your grandfather probably told you. And that is true. They can come at, any time, and sometimes they do come at the worst possible time. That fire on Hyde Street was on a very humid, hot day that the smoke just was not lifting, and that smoke just enveloped the whole area. The whole area of Hyde Street, City Hall, Broadway, that whole neighborhood. You couldn't even catch a breath. So that was a little unusual in that regard. But, we're used to it and we deal with it. So, we take it as it comes.
Now, I know you mentioned candles. So aside from smoking materials and candles, are there other kind of big tips that you give people, or key things that, are easy things that people can prevent?
I would say candles.
Okay.
Candles is another problem. People like candles, which are beautiful, but they're left unattended, and that's dangerous, and seeing some of the people, how they set up with candles, it's just, you got to be very careful to have, a good quality candle that's in a safe holder, even a top on it. They cannot be left unattended. You can't leave them near combustible materials. We've seen that a lot. So candles are another cause. I would encourage people, if you're going to use a candle, you have to really, you can't leave it unattended, and it's always good to leave it on your stove or somewhere that's non-combustible. And it's safer to use alternatives to candles if it's battery operated. Lighting that looks like candles gives the same effect.
Yeah. I
would encourage people to use those. They're safer.
And now I'm sure with people working from home, do you find anything with electrical cords or people overpowering their outlets?
I'll tell you, you know your stuff, because that is, I would say, another huge cause of fires is improper use of electrical equipment. If it's space heaters, which was the cause of that terrible fire in the Bronx, New York City a couple of weeks ago. 17 people died because of a space heater caught on fire. And they did not shut the apartment door, which is another important thing. In large buildings or apartment buildings, shut the door to the fire room if you can, or your apartment room for sure before you leave, to kind of keep the fire in that unit so it doesn't spread to the hallway, in the stairwells, more importantly, because people trying to evacuate the building, they can't even get out of their units because the whole building's charged with smoke, including their hallway and their emergency exit. So I would say improper use of space heaters and extension cords that they're overloading with too many devices. There's a lot of devices today. Everything's plugged in, phones, etc. And keeping them away from combustibles. Make sure you have a UL rated extension cord. With the surge protection. That those are safer to have. So I'd encourage people to be mindful of their electrical outlets and this, what they're using.
So, Chief, I know we talked a lot about fires, and when you think firefighters, I think that's one of the more kind of talked about calls that you guys respond to. People see what's going on in the news and they hear about fire safety, but on your day-to-day, thank God, there's not a fire every day. So, talk to me a little bit about what a normal day looks like and what normal calls that you see that happen more often.
Sure. Well, on the fire department, everything's very paramilitary, oriented. So the firefighters come in, and there's a whole usually list of tasks they have to do: equipment checks, cleaning, taking care of the stations, training. Awful lot of training. Almost every day we work is involved in some type of training, unless we do get caught in an incident and we're unable to. We're all hazard emergency, so we respond. People think fire department, but we respond basically to any call. Anyone's in trouble or having what they think is an emergency, and they don't really know who else to call. We get a lot of unusual calls. So of course we do a lot of medical calls. And with the pandemic, we certainly we got inundated with medical calls. So that's a big part of what we do day in and day out, responding to people, in medical emergencies. Of course, unfortunately, we've had a lot of experience with overdoses, and we continue to, day in and day out. We're responding and administering Narcan numerous times a day and night. So things of that nature, and anything you can possibly imagine. We get an awful lot of car crashes, pedestrian accidents, things of that nature. So everything under the sun, and then we get calls for people, they have a water problem in their building, a sprinkler pipe burst, they have a malfunction with their stove, they're smelling gas, they don't know what to do, so any, whatever you can possibly imagine, we'll respond to it. We try to always make the situation better, have some type of a resolution, if not, point it in the right direction to get it resolved. So.
Well, I have to say, you see people a lot on one of the worst days of their lives when they're calling you, whether it be a car accident or a medical emergency. And I think something really outstanding about what your department does is they try to make it a personal experience, and they try to make people feel better when they're in those really bad moments. And in conversations I've had with constituents, it's always, they were so kind to me. They made me feel like they were listening to me. And I think people don't realize the emotional and the mental toll that your job takes on you when you're dealing with these situations all the time.
It can be difficult. I'll tell you, it's great to hear that. Great, get good feedback, and we do usually. We don't get a lot of negative feedback on the fire department for sure, but when we do, we address those right away, and I want to know. But I'll tell you, if you don't have a boatload of compassion, don't become a firefighter. That's what it's all about. So you got to have compassion, and you can't have compassion burnout. No. And that's what we're required to do, and that's what we're going to hold each other to the highest standards there. And if we don't meet it, then we're gonna make sure it doesn't happen again, and it's gonna get fixed. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned compassion, and I think something that I was so proud that Revere did when I was in the city council that I don't think a lot of people know about, but when you mentioned the overdoses and the response, I think a lot of people's conception is that when a firefighter leaves the call is over. What I don't think people realize are the programs that the Revere Fire Department started that became revolutionary in the Commonwealth. Other areas weren't doing this. Revere started these programs that when your team responded to an overdose, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
The after follow-up?
Sure. Well, the department certainly was on the forefront of the first fire department to carry Narcan, period. Pilot program for the country, maybe as far as I know anywhere else. So yeah, I mean those types of things. We have like the home visits that we work close with the city office in the city that Mayor Rigo created, which has been another great resource. We're starting to put towards resources, not only just responding to the emergency or the overdose, and once that person, hopefully they pull through it and they come home, but actually visit the home and try to connect them with resources. I think the city's doing a great job post overdose and people who needs any type of services, homeless for that matter, post fire services. We really try to up our game and try to create systems to help people and connect them what their needs are. So that's been an area I think we've greatly improved over the years.
Absolutely. You talk about collaboration and your work with SUDI and with, the mayor's office and the fire department and the police department. And I think something that really showed our strength in the last 2 years is this pandemic that we're in. The COVID-19 pandemic has really showed Revere as a leader in the Commonwealth. I think a lot of communities look to the city of Revere and our response and what we did. And a huge part of that was our fire department and our police department. So can you tell us a little bit about how this pandemic impacted the fire department and what changes you're seeing?
Sure. Well, the pandemic is impacted all of us, every family. But, on the fire department, you come to work and you don't really get a break from it there. We've been I tell my guys, you're the tip of the spear. So since day one, we're going to continue doing what we always did. We upped our personal protective equipment stuff and our cleaning stuff, but, we're going to continue doing what we always done. That's serve the citizens no matter what the situation. And we take great pride in that. So it was challenging, because early on in the pandemic, there were a lot of unknowns, and we have a lot of, younger firefighters, and, there's a lot of concerns about, geez, now what about when I go home and I have my mother-in-law who's living with me, or my children, or my wife, or whatever, like everyone else has in their families, those situations you're trying to navigate. So it was complicated, and then we got hit a lot early on with infections, before there was a vaccine available. We'd have probably 20% of our department out sick. So it got a little bit nerve-wracking trying to staff everything and wondering where's this going to go. Am I going to have a fire department left here? Everyone around me was getting sick. So it was difficult, but even through the vaccines and everything, things have improved. I think to a large degree, certainly for people who've been vaccinated and boosted, and the people right now currently, who are filling up the hospitals and getting punished with this and dying, people who are still unvaccinated, or, so again, it was very difficult for the fire department and the police department, I know. But, this is our job, this is our sworn duty, and this is what we're going to do. So, we've continued to do such, and again, try to mask up and be as cautious and careful as we can, and continue doing what we do.
So in terms of COVID, I know it's being a respiratory virus, you have side effects such as shortness of breath and other things like that. Are there certain signs that you would recommend for people to, when is it time to call 911 versus to call urgent care or your primary care physician? And are there certain things that, you guys are told to look for that when people should really call 911?
Sure. First of all, everyone's health situation is different. And like I said, and it does make a lot of difference if you're vaccinated or not unvaccinated. But, depending on your health situation, I think everyone should really, if they're feeling sick, they're ill, or if they have COVID, they should certainly be in contact with their primary care physician's office if they have one, and to be directed what to do. But I would say people, when you have symptoms that you're having trouble breathing, that's a big red flag. Don't wait for that. You know what I mean? I've seen people go down fast with it after having difficulty breathing, stuff like that. Real high fever, that's unrelenting. Things like that. Those are type of benchmarks you want to pay attention. Don't ignore them. You know what I mean? Those are the situations you'd certainly want to call your primary care, or not go to, call 911. If you're not ambulatory, if you need help, certainly you call 911. But it's complicated. But again, it depends. If someone has underlying conditions, elderly, in poor health, or on the other, very young, those are the people you want to be hypersensitive about, and make sure. I would say don't procrastinate, don't wait, because the situations that I've seen gone poorly have been people who've just ignored it, thinking it's going to get better, it's going to magically disappear, and it isn't. So at the point now, there's a big surge, as going on with Omicron, and I'm hopeful that maybe after this winter time, maybe the situation will be improving, because this 2 years in a row we've been going through this, and it's getting kind of, I think, old with everybody.
I agree. It's becoming very sad and depressing, and I think people are ready to start to go back to normal. But I think it's important for us to remember to go back to normal. There are certain preventative measures that as a community we need to take. So, you mentioned getting vaccinated. I think the city's been pushing that, and we've really done a phenomenal job in getting people vaccinated. Now we're moving into the phase of getting boosters for people that are eligible. Again, I'm so proud of the work Revere's done for that.
Absolutely.
What are other preventative measures that you'd recommend for people?
Again, I think things like masks, even on the fire department, they're going to be with us from here on out in a certain capacity. Maybe not every single thing we do, but it certainly does make sense to me during flu season and other seasons when people are getting sick to wear a mask. It does cut down on transmission of the flu and COVID, things of that nature, anything airborne, anything respiratory. So, certainly, to wear a mask when you're in those situations, you know what I mean? And again, just I can't impress upon people enough to get vaccinated. There's still a segment of society who's not getting vaccinated out there. They don't get it. And those are the people who are filling up the hospitals, and they're on ventilators, and a lot of them are dying. And then that precludes other patients who need their cancer treatments or diabetes or other treatments. They can't even get an appointment at the hospital. So it's had a ripple effect on everybody, and so that's why again, we're battling it again for year 2, and I'm just hopeful and praying that, after this winter we'll slowly start recovering and getting to a better place.
Absolutely. And I think, there are certain preventative measures we've been saying all along that are so important. Simple things like washing your hands, right?
Of course, right.
Never underestimate the value of washing your hands.
Good hygiene.
Good
Absolutely,
hygiene.
yeah.
I think it's now a staple that everyone has hand sanitizer in their car and on their person at all time.
Absolutely. Masks in every pocket, we
have them here today.
Exactly.
Yep.
We spread out, give a little space between each other when you can, things of that nature. And you know what? Be patient. Have a boatload of patience. You know what I mean? Be compassionate with other people. Someone might be having a bad day. We've seen a lot of people acting out or whatever. It's people got to kind of cool out a little bit,
I agree. I think people are, tired of being cooped up in their houses. And I think when they are out in public now, we're sensing a little more anxiety in supermarkets and anxiety in public places. And I think it's important to center ourselves and remember we're all in this together. We're all feeling the same feelings. And, the only way we're going to get through this as a community is to come together and, practice good hygiene, wear our masks, practice social distancing, get vaccinated, and just continue to practice those good kind of traits and
absolutely good sense things. I mean, that we should all be doing together.
Absolutely.
For the common good. We used to do things like that. Common good, not just for yourself.
Yes.
But for what you can do for your country. Those types of things. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of your country, now we can bring it back a little bit to local politics and what's going on at the State House. So I will tell you, my time in the State House, I've had an amazing relationship with you, Chief, and with Local 926 and with your guys over at the fire department. And there are several pieces of legislation right now happening at the state level regarding the fire department. The first of which is something I'm very excited about, and that's the new legislation put forward. It was a home rule petition from the city of Revere. It was unanimously passed by the city council to do a land swap to build the new Point of Pines fire station. So can you talk to us a little bit about this new station? And
very exciting. That was a big hurdle there. Right now we're very excited, prepared to build out the Point of Pines fire station. It's been a long time coming. It's been a complicated site to work on because there's a lot of agencies that have a piece down there, and between licensing, permitting, and land swapping and takeover. It's been complicated, but we're working our way towards the end of that process, and we hope to put this out to bid, hopefully by the spring and summertime, and then start building that station out. And we have about an 8-month build, 10-month build out schedule. So again, and I want to see this through, that we get this station built by the summer of 2023. So about a year from this summer, we'll have a new station down there, 3 bays, have the capacity to have a pump, a ladder truck, and water. We'll have a bay for water rescue. craft. So it's very exciting. It'll be a big boost to our response capacity, not just for the Point of Pines, Revere Beach, Oak Island, that whole area, but for the entire city. So, and again, we need it. We've lost that station. It's been over 30 years, and to bring it back, when I came on a department, I worked down that station, on occasions, So to be in a capacity, I'll bring that back to where we were is a great point of personal pride.
Absolutely. And I think especially since the residential capacity in that area of our city has grown so much, we really need another station down there to help you support all the new buildings that have come online, so that when there's an emergency on the beach, they're not coming from Broadway, you have that ability to just traverse the beach right from a different part of the beach.
Absolutely, Jessica. And what I've even seen just the past 5 years or so is there are certain times you may not be able to get down to the Point of Pines. I've literally had occasions where you couldn't get down the boulevard, it was underwater. You couldn't, North Shore Road flooded, it was underwater. And they're an island. That peninsula is an island. So to have a footprint down there already, good to go with personnel to help people in case we can't even get there.
Absolutely.
That's what we need.
And there'll be water apparatuses too at that facility as well. I know you guys have several boats and different...
Yes, we want to donate one bay to either have our boat. We have a couple of Zodiacs, so we have some equipment. We just need some more birds, places to keep them, places to run out of, things like that. So we're very excited about that.
That's great. I know growing up, my memories at the Point of Pines Fire Station were always for the annual memorial that was held there. So it'll be really nice if we can go back there for 2023.
I would like to see that myself. That'd be my swan song, so to speak. And we're looking to relocate our memorial into the back of that building, into the wall of the building. We have some ideas what to do, and it should be, I'm sure, hopefully it'll be beautiful. I'm sure when we're done with it. So we're really excited about that.
I am too. And to give you an update, Chief, from what's happening at the state level. So as you know, nothing is easy when it comes to anything that has to go through the legislative process. So what happened is once that we realized that we needed to do that land swap, the mayor's office put it to the city council. So the city council voted unanimously. And then I received a communication from the city clerk from my office to file a bill. So that bill for the land transfer between the DCR and DOT for that bus turnaround so that you guys can build the new fire station goes through a whole legislative process. So it was sent to committee where it was discussed. And of course, I submitted testimony along with my colleague Rep. Turco to advocate why this was so important and time sensitive. And now it's currently in Ways and Means, where basically they'll look at it, and this is where they kind of pull everything together. They need to see documentation from the city about, who owns the land and what's what, and their legal team reviews everything. And then hopefully it'll be voted out favorably by that committee, and then the House will vote on it. And then once all the land is transferred and finalized, you guys will be good to go, and the footprint of that actual station will be ready.
We're very excited about that. I have total faith and confidence that our legislation is in good hands. It is going to come out favorably. And it has moved very swiftly. So that has not been a bone of contention from my office at all. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
If we were just rehabbing or rebuilding that fire station on that footprint, it would have already been built.
Absolutely.
But that's not what we need down there for public safety. Firehouse. We need more than that, and I want to build something that's going to be able to serve us for the next 100 years.
Absolutely.
And that's the idea, and anything less won't be good enough for the residents. We're going to make sure we're going to see that through.
I agree. And I don't think people realize that the level of disrepair that building was in, and how, this was our only option. And then even the process to take the building down, there was asbestos, there were hurdles that you guys had to overcome just to get it to be level land. And
underground storage tanks we didn't know about, all kinds of things we ran into, issues that happen, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and these are the things people don't know about. People don't hear about them. So when you see projects taking time, I think it's important that people know there's always, a million other parts moving, and there's at the state level the legislation that's being moved for these things to happen.
Right.
At the ground level, your guys are working on getting what needs to be done at the property as well as the city. So a lot of different moving parts.
There it is. It's complicated, but again, we've been going at this for a while, and I really feel once these issues are coming to a resolution, and once they do, the building of the station will be the easy part.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so are we.
And another piece of legislation that we're working on for the fire department is regarding reserve time for your members. So to kind of summarize this for people, basically when a lot of men and women were hired by the fire department and put on the permanent reserve list, these people make decisions for their life based on that. They know, you need X amount of years to retire into the retirement system. And when they're appointed to the reserve list and put in that position, you can kind of plan ahead and say, okay, now if I'm on the reserve list for 3 years, that's 3 years towards my retirement, and I can plan my life around that.
Right.
Well, what happened was when the legislation changed, it left a certain group of members out that would have lost that reserve time. So again, the city council unanimously passed a home rule to give members that were cut out from that the ability to have their reserve time that fell in that window, so that the men and women on your department can benefit from those years in. And again, that's another piece of legislation we're working on. So
that is huge, and I know President O'Hara put a lot of work into that issue. You guys spearheaded it on behalf of really all firefighters throughout the state. Again, we really do have a great delegation up at the State House and the firefighters really appreciate what you did there. Because again, when you sign up for this job, through civil service and other, you have a certain amount of rules and regulations that pertain to you, and then when the game gets changed, like ex post facto, they'd say, and illegal, to be like after the fact, that's kind of a tough rub. So to remedy that and get them the time that they were originally promised, I think to right a wrong like that is was very important, and it didn't go unnoticed, and the firefighters and the firefighters union is very grateful to you for that.
Absolutely, and I think it was important work that needed to be done. These are people's livelihood. You plan your retirement, you plan your life for your children and for your family around decisions like this, so it was so important. And, the fire department's really lucky to have strong leaders like you at the helm of the ship, and like President O'Hara of the union, who, President O'Hara has been advocating for different issues for as long as I've been on the council. He, was talking to us when we had the issue of 5G networks, and you had the tower on the station and different issues like that, always looking out for the safety of our firefighters and, what's in the best interest of the membership there. In terms of the reserve time, I know how passionate they were, and I feel bad. I really wish that the building was open, that they could have been there. I know we talked about having the membership be able to be there, so hopefully, Chief, we're going to be able to plan something in the city, maybe outdoors, so that when this gets passed, the membership can celebrate that this did happen, and being able to just, really take a moment in that 2 really big pieces of legislation for the fire department have went through and been able to support future generations.
I think that's very important, and I think those days are coming very soon, and we'll certainly be looking to celebrate, those issues and a lot of other things too. But no, we're very grateful, Jessica, for your assistance on that. Honestly, it does mean a lot to the firefighters.
Thank you, Chief. Well, we're grateful for your leadership at the city level.
I appreciate that. It's my honor, it really is.
Well, I think it's wonderful whenever you see, someone that was born and bred in the city and came through the ranks of the department, as well as, our school system, to be in your role and to do what you're doing and give back to the community. We're really lucky in the city of Revere to have that.
It's nice of you to say that. Thank you.
Of course. So to bring it all back around, what are some of your goals as chief of the fire department, and what are some things you're looking forward to as we're starting a new year, 2022, to bring to the table, and things that I should have on my radar so we can help at the state level?
We applied for a couple of grants recently. We applied one for a fire engine when we opened a new station, the new engine 2. We've also we're ready to submit a grant on staffing for 17 firefighters. Wow. That would staff the new station, and it would literally staff every position on the fire department, something that has not been done for over probably 30, 40 years. Wow. So during my time here. So that's really my goal, is to see those things through, along with the building of the new station. And then I think I'll be done. Yeah.
Well, that's really exciting, Chief. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today and to talk a little bit about what's happening in the city of Revere in terms of fire safety and COVID-19, and some big things happening on Beacon Hill for our fire department. So grateful for you and your service. When there's an emergency and normal people are running out, your team's running in. They're the ones responding, putting themselves on the front line. And without people like that in our community, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you, Chief.
Likewise, very nice of you to say that, and it's my pleasure being here. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Jessica.
Well, this concludes View from the Hill. Thanks, guys.